right. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good morning. How many people were in Ryan's session downstairs? Growth ramp sound kind of cool? Yeah, one person. That's awesome. Yeah, perfect, great. Hey, I'm Marcus Murphy. I'm the Director of Monetization, Digital Marketer. Before I bring up this next person who I literally hounded to come to Traffic Conversion Summit because I'm a student of his work. I read all of his books. I wanted to say this. How many people in here were agencies again? Yeah, look around. Wow, that's way more than half the room. Paul Roetzer, who's unbelievable, wrote the blueprint, literally the blueprint for marketing agencies. If you haven't read that book, you're insane. And also, if your teams haven't read that book, you're insane. Does that sound good? I love insulting you the first thing that we do this morning. The marketing blueprint. So make sure you guys write that one down. I'm sure Paul will never talk about it. He's one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. But I will say this. If you're an agency in here, yesterday Ryan and I mentioned that we have a breakfast tomorrow morning. We want to have, this morning, we had 100 people show up this morning for our breakfast, so right around there, and then people trickled in, etc. Tomorrow morning, we're having another breakfast. We want to meet agencies while we're here. So if that is you, Peter in the back there with the red shirt, see him? Look at him. Look at that handsome beard, everyone. Look at that. He has some tickets over there. We'd love to have you out 7 to 8:30 with Ryan and I. And so here's the deal. The reason why I actually asked Paul to be here is because when I started the agency, we started the agency program for digital marketer and trying to figure out how do we serve our agencies well. We sucked at it, okay? We literally were not great at figuring out what agencies actually care about, and what they actually care about is not hearing from people like Ryan and myself, which is awesome. Like, Ryan's really funny sometimes, but nobody really cares. At an agency level, you want to hear from other agency owners who know what they're doing, who are implementing amazing things in their business and growing, right? Is that really why you're here? I mean, you really came to this conference to learn new things to grow your agency or your business. Is that right? Yeah? Can I get a woo? All right, cool. So, without further ado, I do want to bring Paul to the stage, but I'll tell you right now, please take notes. Please take pictures of every slide that he has, because this man is brilliant, and he's talking about the future of what you need to know as an agency so you're not left in the dust. Please welcome Mr. Paul Roetzer.
A little much. I'm not really sure what to do after that introduction. All right, so this is definitely a talk that will benefit agencies, hopefully, significantly, but it is as well for general marketers. I'll preface it by saying that the things I'm going to tell you, I believe that within 5 years, at least 80% of what we do as an agency will be, to some degree, intelligently automated by artificial intelligence. So I'm actually going to walk you through why that is and how it's going to be possible. So one of my favorite authors is Tim Urban. Any Tim Urban Wait But Why readers in the audience? If you're not subscribed to his blog, it's insane. He only writes, it seems like, every 3 to 6 months, but he goes really deep on topics that he's passionate about. And that's the idea of wait, but why? Like, why is this possible? Why does this happen? And he always has these quirky, simplistic illustrations that go along with it. So this is actually a visualization from an article he wrote called The AI Revolution. And in it, he talks about this idea that when we're trying to predict the future, when we're looking forward as to what will be the services we offer as a marketer, what will be the things I'm doing every day, what's going to matter, you can only think in a linear path as a human. You take your sum of experiences and the things you know and the things you do, the things you've learned, and you try and project out what will happen over the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. So imagine that that's you standing on the end of that curve, and you're trying to figure out what is coming next. The problem is you can't see what's up and to the right. And this tweet from New Year's Eve of this past year exemplifies this perfectly. So I was home because I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and on New Year's Eve, you know, they go to bed at 9 o'clock and you sit there and check your Twitter feed. And this is a journalist from Bloomberg, tweeted things that didn't exist on New Year's Eve 10 years ago. Instagram, Snapchat, Siri, iPad, Bitcoin, Alexa. I'm just highlighting some of the things that affect us as marketers and as businesses. Facebook Messenger, Square, Google Chrome, Slack, Kickstarter, App Store, Pinterest. Find My Phone iPhone is actually my favorite because the iPhone itself was only 6 months old at that point. So in 10 years, these transformative technologies emerged that almost nobody could have predicted were going to happen. The reality is this is what the future looks like. It's an up and to the right curve we can't comprehend because the technology that's going to make it that doesn't even exist yet. But it's coming extremely fast, and it's being fueled by artificial intelligence. So I'm going to give you a broad scope of what AI is, just so you understand. I know Ryan touched on bots and AI a little bit yesterday in his keynote. So hopefully when you leave today, you're going to have a far greater comprehension of what it is and why it matters to you. This is a quote from Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google. He recently said this last month to an interview on MSNBC. AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. It's more profound than, I don't know, electricity or fire. So the people that spend their lives in AI believe it's going to transform everything: business, marketing, society, the economy. For us, it started with this simple question: can we automate the creation of content with AI? The reason this question came out is we were at South by Southwest in 2015. The CEO of a company called Automated Insights and the managing editor of the Associated Press were on stage telling the story of how the Associated Press had automated the creation of earnings reports. So instead of doing 300 earnings reports a quarter written by humans, they were doing 3,000 a quarter written by machines. So this is 2015, this time, it was March 2015. And so I left that having a base knowledge of AI. I'd actually been working on a concept for a few years of using IBM Watson-like technology to intelligent automated marketing strategy. So I'd been exploring it, but this was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second, that's a tangible use case. We are content strategists and writers. That's what we do as an agency. So specifically, we were looking at, can we use machines to write content? And I'll come back to the answer to this as we go along. So high level, what is it? It's the science of making machines smart. So it's taking a machine and teaching it to have human-like capabilities. So in the near term for marketers, what it's doing is actually enhancing your knowledge and capabilities. We're not going to get into a bunch of terms, but these are the terms you're going to hear often, and you'll start noticing them more and more if you aren't already. So AI is the umbrella. It's a collection of tools, technologies, processes. Machine learning is the most common form you'll hear about, and then deep learning below that. You'll start seeing a lot of AI tools claiming, or marketing tools claiming they have AI within them, and they'll use terms like natural language processing, natural language generation, computer vision, image recognition. You don't have to necessarily understand what all these terms mean, but the quicker you understand what they're capable of doing, you're going to create a massive competitive advantage for yourself in your career, in your business, and in your agency. So to level set, just a use case for marketers. Everything you do, if you use a marketing automation tool, you set the rules of how it works. So the great irony of marketing automation is it's completely manual. A human wrote code that enables you to send emails and build landing pages and change headlines and change CTAs and monitor click rates, but you set all the rules to tell it what to do for you. With AI, it can set its own rules. It can actually evolve performance based on data. So an example, if we're thinking of traffic and conversion, their live stream. If someone registers for that and you want to send an email campaign, some sort of nurturing process, and after the fact, maybe you want to upsell or cross-sell or get them to the next event, the human, the marketer, figures all that out. They figure out what emails to send, they write the emails, they figure out when to send them, they figure out what images to use. But what if you wanted to personalize it to 1,000 registrants or 10,000 registrants or 100,000 registrants? You're literally not capable of doing that. Like the human mind can't comprehend how to personalize at an individual level. You would never have enough time to do it. Anybody go on their Facebook feed today, see an alert that they're now offering facial recognition, which will recognize your face in every photo that you ever were not tagged in, not the ones you were tagged in? If you haven't been on Facebook, go today. Within the first 3 or 4 things, you're going to see a notice from them that they've automatically turned on something called facial recognition. You've been using it for years. When you upload a photo and it recognizes the people within it, they're using facial recognition technology. They've taught a machine to recognize human faces and know who it is based on other factors. So it's been in there. They're apparently now turning it on by default to recognize every photo ever taken of you that's been posted to Facebook. You may just be in the background of something and it'll know you're there. They're trying to use it, apparently, to prevent spam and fraud, so your face isn't used at times when you don't intend it to be. That's AI. It's a part of your life. What you'll find is you're actually using AI dozens, if not hundreds of times every day. How many iPhone 10 users? So when you unlock your iPhone 10 or send an emoji, it's facial recognition. When you use Google Maps to get somewhere, it's AI. It's machine learning to figure out the best paths to go. There's no human coding it saying turn left here, turn right there. It's looking at traffic patterns and telling you where to go. This is AI everywhere in your life. If you do a search on Google, one of the biggest factors determining whether what shows up is something called rank brain. It's an AI algorithm. It's, again, not human coded. They don't know what it's doing. The people who created the algorithm can't even actually tell you exactly why it's producing the results it produces. Anybody ever click on those smart replies in your Gmail app? Yeah? So, or LinkedIn or on iMessage, it like suggests what to say. It's using artificial intelligence to read what's in the email or in the message and predict what you would like to respond. So in this case, do you want to hit up a party? Yeah, I'm down. I didn't write that. They suggested it to me, and it happened to fit exactly what I wanted to say. There's a team of 35 engineers at Google, led by one of the greatest minds in AI today, building this product. So if you start to think about as marketers, like we create words, we do language generation, we try and write replies, we try and write headlines, we try and write body copy. There's actually teams at places like Google that are building the capability to do this. If you're a Netflix user, 75% of what you watch is based on some AI-generated algorithm. So if you start thinking about the content you produce as a brand, and you want to recommend it to people, this is the type of technology that can actually automate the recommendation of that. So right now, you would have to go in and say, if they download this ebook or register for this event, show them this ebook. And if they download that one, then and you're creating all this branching logic. That won't be done in the future. That'll be done for you. And you'll just say yes or no to the recommendations that are being made. What you read, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, which is a massive in AI. Because if you think about everything you do on Amazon, it's personalized to you. They're trying to make recommendations based on everything you've done, everything you've bought, everything you've looked at, what people like you have bought and looked at, trends it thinks are important to you. And if anybody is lucky enough to be a Tesla owner, or in the next 5 years, a lot of cars will have this technology, you can actually see at the bottom, this is how Tesla does autonomous vehicles. It doesn't know what a car is. It doesn't know what a person is. It doesn't know what a tree or a pole or any of these things are. It knows it's an object, or it knows it's a lane, a line. And so it's actually using image recognition. So on the right is what the computer is actually seeing. And it's recognizing distances, and it's actually figuring out where to go based on that information. Again, machines they can't think like humans. They can't see like humans. They can't hear like humans. They're taught to do all of these things. So the point is, your life is already machine assisted. You've been using AI for years, and you had no idea that that was actually what was making all these things possible. And that's what's going to happen to your marketing. You're starting to see it creep into major platforms, but most of it is actually being done at an individual level where there's startups that are getting significant amounts of funding to build use case-based tools. The AI you see in movies like Ex Machina, Terminator, doesn't exist. There's no such thing as general intelligence, a sentient being that can do these things. That's just sci-fi right now. What does exist is the ability to take a data-driven, narrow task and teach a machine to do it at superhuman levels. And it's being done. So we launched something called the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute a little over a year ago to try and figure all this out. So we knew it was happening. We knew it was coming. Like I said, I run an agency. And I was looking to the future and saying, a lot of what we do is going to be intelligently automated. Like, where is this all going? What are these use cases? How does this work? And so we launched this basically as a content hub to try and figure it out, to try and think of, well, what are the use cases? Which technologies really do make things intelligent? So to give you a sense of the significance of the space, we've interviewed 35 companies. We've done spotlights on them. We asked the same 8 questions of all of them. Like, what is AI? How are you using it? What are the use cases for marketers? Who's your ideal client size? What are the limitations of AI? We're basically doing market research through interviewing these companies. So we've interviewed 35 collectively. They have over $663 million in funding. And on the right, you can see funding amounts for some of them. That's just 10 of them. We're tracking almost 700, though. And these are sales and marketing companies that have identified themselves also categorically as an artificial intelligence company. Collectively, over $3.6 billion in funding. And the rate of that funding is accelerating at an almost incomprehensible pace. So how do you understand this as a marketer? It took us probably about a year of really thinking about this and researching and writing to try and comprehend a framework that made this understandable and approachable. So what we've done is kind of broke it into these 5 Ps of artificial intelligence. I'm going to walk you through a few use cases for each of these so you can start to see exactly how this impacts you as a marketer and as an agency professional. The first is planning, and this is actually the most robust area where AI can, in the near term, really change the way we do marketing because it's got the most use cases. An example would be when you're trying to build a content strategy, figure out what to write about. Right now, you may look at keyword volume, you may look at the past performance of blog posts, you may do Google Trends reports, you may have an SEO platform you go into. There's a lot of different tools you can use. It's a perfect use case for AI, though, because it can read through all of that. It can look at click rates and page views and all the metrics you would use to try and figure out what to write about and actually surface recommendations for you. And from there, the human goes through and picks out. So it's just enhancing a capability. It's not replacing a marketer. It's giving you tools to do things that you're probably not that good at anyway. Unless you're an SEO person, then you're probably great at it. Capture competitive intelligence. This is a really fascinating one. So Cran is a company out of Boston that enables you to monitor the digital footprint of any brand, just put their URL in, anything they do on and off website. So social channels, customer reviews. You can get alerts every time something happens. If they run a campaign, if they add an executive to their team and change their website. So you can get alerts, but it'll also automate narratives about what happened. So instead of you just looking through charts, it'll put it into words for you. It's using a thing called natural language generation to produce the words for you. Another one that's interesting if you're in the paid space would be Pathmatics. What they do is they monitor the top 9,000 sites on the internet for all advertising that happens. And then they'll actually capture the image of the ad so they can show you. So if you put in, say, 3 competitors you want to monitor, it'll tell you every time they change an ad. It'll tell you the ad networks they went through to buy the ads. Like you can print out a spreadsheet to see the 7 networks they went through to purchase the ad, what they're paying for the ad, how many impressions the ad created, things that you couldn't have actually possibly done. Like you could have, as a human, spent weeks or months maybe trying to capture all this data. You can now actually do it in real time because they're using machine learning to capture all this information and get smarter as it goes along. Production, this goes back to the one I started with, like, can we automate content creation? The answer is sort of. And I'll explain in a minute the specific use case, but this is one of my favorite examples because it's so tangible. So writing email subject lines. If you're sending an email, it gets, the volume matters. So if you're spending 10,000 or 100,000, it starts to get better and better. But Phrasee claims that they can outperform human written subject lines 98% of the time. What it does is it uses natural language processing, which is reading the text and understanding what it means. So you still write the email. The AI comes in and reads the email and then recommends subject lines based on probability of engagement or conversion. And it'll show you why it's rating that. It gives you the little bubbles and says, here's why we think you should use this subject line with this emoji. So again, it's not replacing a human, but it's taking all the heavy lifting off of you, and it's capturing all this data to inform what subject line to use. Another one is Acrolinks. How many Grammarly users in the audience? Like, okay, oh, that's, so if you don't have Grammarly, you can get a free extension and put it in your Chrome browser, and it'll like edit your content as you're writing it, like in Gmail or Google Docs or wherever. Grammarly recently raised $100 million, and I can promise you it's not to do AP style editing. Like they're trying to better understand human language and help you create human language. Acrolinks has a head start though. This company is about 15 years old, and what they do is you can actually train the AI to your brand guidelines, your tone, your style, the sentiment, the emotion. You teach it all the things you want, and then it can scale across thousands of writers in a single corporation. So if you're a big enterprise and you have thousands of writers or hundreds of writers across the world, because they can do it in 6 languages, you can have basically a universal AI editor that edits everyone's work the exact same way, but you can integrate geographical changes, like if they're in this country, say this way. So again, things that aren't possible. I mean, you would need dozens of human editors to do this, but now you can actually train the AI. And that's one of the things to think about is you do have to train. Like, it's not like you flip a switch with AI and all of a sudden everything you had to do is just gone and life's good. There's a lot of heavy lifting that goes into teaching it how to do this. Personalization is the big space. This is where most of the money has gone. So I said planning is the most robust, like it's the most use cases that could be disrupted by AI, but it's not happening yet. Most of the money has gone into how to personalize experiences. Go back to that idea of Amazonification of marketing. So a couple of examples here. Email optimization of send time is one of my favorites because, again, it's super tangible. So let's say if you have a blog, you can have it just auto-send when it publishes, like it just automatically goes out to everybody. Or maybe you use a newsletter format instead and you send it at 3 p.m. daily or weekly or whatever. Well, think about, like, if you have 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million subscribers, 3 p.m. isn't the best time to send it to everybody. Like, they may be in different countries. They may be more likely to open their promotional tab emails in Gmail on Saturday nights after the kids go to bed, like me. Like, you can customize that, but there's no way a human's going to go through at an individual level and customize send time for everybody in a database. The AI can do that for you, and it keeps learning and evolving. So it may start sending an email at 4 o'clock on a Thursday to you, but then realize you're not opening them at 4 o'clock on Thursdays anymore. And it can change itself and say, well, let's try 9 o'clock on Thursdays and see what happens. And it's constantly doing this at an individual level for every person in the database. Sending data-driven customized emails is another really cool example. So this one comes from the Orlando Magic using Automated Insights, the same company I mentioned at the beginning. And what they do is they take their database of season ticket holders and they monitor to see if they show up to games and if they're likely to not come to a game that night. And what they'll do is take that database, feed it into the natural language generation system, and they'll then send out emails at a personal level saying, hey, your tickets probably won't, if you're not using them, they would probably sell, or you can exchange them for magic money. Here's how to do it. So it takes you as a season ticket holder, enhances the relationship, kind of has this conversational tone like Ryan talked about yesterday, and it tries to personalize that experience for you. Salesforce is huge in this area. I don't know the latest data, but at one point last year, I think they were up to 9 AI company acquisitions for over $2 billion. So they've been buying up AI technology and integrating it in, and they rolled out something called Einstein, which is basically a layer over the normal Salesforce platform. And it does things like recommendations, it segments audiences, segments visitors, looks at behavior patterns, and changes what you do as a marketer and a salesperson based on it. Promotion, A/B testing of landing pages is a perfect example. Like, how many people in here are responsible for A/B testing landing pages or calls to action or emails? Not something you will be doing in 5 years. It is not an ideal task for humans because we take, maybe it's a subject line or an image, like you pick one variant, but maybe you want to do multivariate and you want to have 2 or 3 things tested. But right now you probably say, let's test landing page A and landing page B for a week and see what happens. Then you make one change. This can do it in real time, infinite number of multivariate tests. And it constantly changes what it's doing and presents to you, here's the creative we recommend based on probabilities of engagement. Spend time. How many people in here manage paper budgets? Okay, decent amount. So Albert is one of the furthest along in terms of being truly autonomous, meaning the AI largely supports. Like if you think about a 1 to 5 scale of right now what you do is a 1, like the human does all the work. 2 would be like minimal AI. 5 would be fully autonomous, like no touching it from a human. Most systems today are around a 2. This one may be creeping into the 3 range. What you do here is you upload the images, the body copy, and the headlines for the ads, and then and you tell how much you want to spend every day, and then Albert starts running the ads, varying the creative, and it can do it across a half a dozen channels simultaneously, and it'll automatically shift your budget to the channels that are performing best and to creative that's performing best. And all you do is monitor it and watch what's happening. Challenge is the minimum spend is $20K a month. What you'll find with a lot of these AI technologies is they're built for enterprises. They're built for people with a lot of data. but that's evolving. But things like this exist, and as new competitors emerge, you'll start seeing the capabilities falling into the small, medium-sized business. And then the last section is performance. This one's very early. Again, enormous potential to disrupt, but it's really hard. And the reason is, it's hard to prescribe what to do next. Most AI has been built to predict something. Predict customer conversions, predict likelihood of a lead converting, predict the likelihood of an upsell, likelihood of churn. It's all about trying to predict what happens. The holy grail of AI is prescribing what to do to cause those outcomes. And that's extremely difficult to do. So in this case, you can see things like GrowthBot, which was created by Dharmesh, one of the co-founders of HubSpot. And in this case, you can ask it. You can do this in like a Facebook Messenger or in a text. You can ask it questions about traffic, and it'll like spit out replies to you. So instead of having to go in and like conduct searches, you just use voice and ask it, or well, they don't have voice yet, but you can text it in, and in theory, you could add voice into it. Or if you go into Google Analytics, in July of last year, they debuted something called Ask Analytics, and you can go in and ask things like, what is the trend this season, and it produces results. So a quick hack would be take the 5 or 10 things you want to know from your Google Analytics every month, and just ask Google those questions, and it'll produce charts and insights into what happened. So I'm going to wrap this with 3 things to know and 3 tips to get started, and then we'll probably actually have a few minutes for questions if anybody has questions. So it is very early, very, very early. This may be overwhelming as a topic. It may seem really abstract, and you may feel like there's no hope. But I can tell you just by being in the room and knowing what you know, you're actually far ahead of the majority of marketers and agencies. People generally hear AI, they think of sci-fi, and they turn the other way. And they get overwhelmed. They get scared by it, get confused by it. I would advise you to like take a next step. Like commit to learning a little bit at a time. You don't have to dive into this stuff and understand it all. But as the funding comes in, a lot of these companies haven't even proven they can do this. So the challenge with AI is there's only, the data varies, but I saw one that said there's only 10,000 people in the world capable of building technology like this, building AI. So are you going to build a widget to help marketers, or are you going to cure cancer or take down Wall Street with intelligent algorithms? Go into healthcare, go into logistics, go into shipping, go into massive industries. That's where the money is going. That's where the talent is going. So one of the challenges, the people that are building these tools, it's still really early, and they haven't actually proved they can scale them. They haven't proven the use case, and they're actually not that intelligent yet. In most cases, it does require a lot of data. Think of structured data like columns and rows of contact databases, or unstructured data like social media content or Word docs or emails. So unstructured is words. It doesn't fit neatly into rows and columns. Most of it is enterprises are going to have all that data, but there's ways that you can change that. There's things you can still do without a massive amount of data, but enterprises are likely to see the most benefits in the near term. However, there is this push to make it more affordable. People like Google and Facebook are actually opening up their AI algorithms, opening up their AI capabilities like image recognition. You can actually use Facebook's image recognition technology within your marketing. You can use that algorithm to train your own things, how to do stuff. Same thing with Google. They have something called TensorFlow. So you can use these big companies. Now, the trade-off is they're getting all of your data. And if anybody pays attention to how much data Google and Amazon and Facebook has about us, some people that scares. But it's the reality of kind of where we're at today. These major companies control the vast majority of our data. And then the 3 steps to get started. What I would look at is think about the things you do every day. Think about the common tasks. The ones that are really data intensive, I would start there. Like what are you looking at data to help figure out, to predict something, to determine a strategy or tactic? And ask yourself, could this be intelligently automated? Is there a tool in the market today I could experiment with that may do this? So again, like email send time is a perfect one, or writing email subject lines, or A/B testing landing pages. The second would be look at your data and say, what stories are we telling with this now? So if every month you're producing a Google Analytics report, or you're doing campaign reports for AdWords, or something where you're taking data and creating a narrative, you can absolutely automate that process. You can teach the machine to write that report. We've been doing it for probably 2 years now with Google Analytics data. We used to spend 6 to 8 hours a month on client reports saying, here's what happened and here's what we're going to do about it. That's almost completely automated now using natural language generation. So the machine's been trained to know which insights to pull out, surface them into a narrative, and then we can just add some commentary beyond that. The other thing is, what data do you have you're not telling a story with? Like, because you just don't have the time or money to do it. Again, assume you can actually use variations of AI to do that. And then the last one is consider the capabilities of your existing tech stack. Because you have to train AI to narrowly do a single task, you literally could add a dozen more MarTech tools or more than that to your stack if you tried to have AI do each thing within it. Because there is no AI platform. You can't go subscribe to one company and everything's just automatically, intelligently automated for you. So you do have to consider that. If you're at Salesforce or HubSpot or Oracle or Adobe or whoever it is, they're all investing heavily in AI. Talk to them. See what other features are available. What else could you be doing to intelligently automate processes, find efficiencies, better personalize content and recommendations. That's always a great starting point. So what comes next? This is always the first question, so I'll just hit this one right now. Will machines replace marketers? Maybe. In the near term, it's largely going to enhance knowledge and capabilities. So I would look at it as a superpower in the near term. Like if you understand how to use these things and you find the right tools, it'll almost seem magical to everybody else how you're doing what you're doing. That could change. There's been studies done. There was one in particular by the University of Oxford on the computerization of industries, and they looked at like 702 professions and assigned probability or likelihood that that profession would be completely automated. Telemarketers was #1 on the list. Marketers were generally pretty safe. And it actually got into like marketing manager, PR manager. It gets into some pretty specific things related to marketing, so it's a pretty good read. Anything beyond 5 years, no one has a clue, especially me, the AI experts in the world, the machine learning engineers, they literally don't know. A good example of this is the brightest minds in the industry got together and they tried to predict things that could be intelligently automated. And one of the things on the list was the game of Go. So a 3,000-year-old game, they said that it would be a minimum of a decade before a machine could beat the human champion at Go. Within 12 months, Google did it. So they created an algorithm that people didn't think was possible to create with today's technology, beat the human champion. Then 12 months later, released another version of it that defeated the AI they created 100 games to 0. And then they shut it off. They didn't see how smart it could get. And the key is it learned it in 72 hours. And all they told it was win. They didn't give it the rules of engagement. They didn't teach it how to play Go. They literally let it run simulations of itself. So when I see this stuff, this goes back to like that I started in 2012 considering intelligently automating marketing strategy. The reason I did that was because I looked at everything and said it's all goal-based. Like all we're doing is trying to get to a goal. Could a machine just tell you the probabilities of success based on various models? This campaign will give an 82% chance of achieving the goal. This one would be 93%. That's what AI does, and it's doing it in things far more complex than marketing. But the money and the talent hasn't focused on marketing yet. So the massive disruption should come as long as the talent and funding continues to flow into the marketing space. But in the near term, this can truly be a competitive advantage. And the last thing I'll leave you with is just start with one use case. Find one thing to pilot. Find one feature within the existing tech stack you have that is AI-based that you can start to understand it. Because this is literally, it is something you have to do it to understand it. Like hopefully now it makes a little more sense to you. And once you apply it and try it, or once you just start realizing how it's being affected, how you're using it already in your daily life, you'll start to just connect the dots and say, oh my gosh, like this is something I do every day that I spend 2 hours on. I mean, I have to do this. So find something that's highly valuable to you that you spend a lot of time doing, and then try and find something, a tool out there that can help you intelligently automate that. And with that, I'm going to end, and we do have a few minutes for questions if anybody has a question. Got one down here in the front. I think we have a mic's coming around.
Hi, Paul. John Anderson, Agent Branding System.
Hey,
We're
John.
trying to do some big things for our clients, which are primarily insurance agents for insurance agent marketing, in terms of voice search. That's the next big thing for us. But we know that AI plays a huge role in that behind the scenes in terms of structured data and so forth. Any recommendations that you have for me?
Yeah, so the question was related to insurance agencies and voice search. It's a great example. So voice search, Siri, Alexa, maybe you're using HomePod now with Siri, Cortana, Microsoft, all of them are voice search powered, which is natural language processing and understanding. It's taking in human language, trying to figure out what you're asking, and then natural language generation giving you a response that it thinks answers your question. So more and more people are finding business listings, finding restaurants to go to, finding promotions. They're finding information by just asking their phone something. So one company to look at would be Yext. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but yeah, Yext is a good one. They're actually a benefactor of the site. Yeah, yep. So what they do is knowledge management of your business listings, and you can put promotions and images, and then they populate that out to all the directories. So instead of having to do one-to-one like every directory, they warehouse all the information and they push it out to everybody to ensure accuracy. And they have a massive focus on voice search and the impact it's going to have on companies. So again, go to the tech company that you know does it, find out how they're investing in this space, and that would be where I would start. It's a great question. Yeah, voice search is huge. Got another one over here?
When you talk about natural language, is that only for English language, or that can be for any other language?
Yeah.
What is your experience on that?
Good, really good question. There was, so natural language, is it only for English speaking or is it for other languages? There was actually a study that I think we might have just written about it last week, but it was talking about that exact problem, that some of these tools like Alexa or Siri can only speak so many languages, and in some cases they're not even the most popular languages. And so those companies are making huge investments to try and do that better and expand the reach of it, but that's definitely a gap in the market right now. And in terms of companies like an Automated Insights being able to generate that language, it's pretty limited as well. So the tech to do this is so early, and that's kind of the next frontier is when you can expand it out. So Acrolinks, which I mentioned that does the processing of the language, they're in 6 languages, and they've been around for 15 years, and they're probably the most advanced in that. Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, but basically the thing is that, for example, in Spanish, you go literal.
Yeah.
It does not mean what you really mean. So we have always had troubles with sentiment analysis and all that stuff, because it never works in Spanish, for example.
Yeah, and that is probably going to be a problem for a while. Sentiment and emotion are really hard for machines, and so they haven't even perfected it in English language in many cases. So yeah, it's probably going to, I mean, and think about your experience with Siri. Like, Siri was first to the market. Siri kind of sucks. Like, it's actually not that good at answering your questions, and they've put massive amounts of money into it. So they're still trying to perfect the base technology, more or less, across all languages. Probably time for 1 or 2 more back here. Or I'm sorry, over here. You're ready.
All right, so we're creating like campaigns and whatever, and what I was been thinking is integrating AI in some case, but I'm thinking, well, I have no idea about or the money or any of that to actually scientifically create the AI systems. So my thinking is, after what you said, it sounds like there's AI systems or APIs that we could, let's say we have a message or whatever, and then we can send that into something that actually has all the processing, and then it just returns us what we should do with it. Does that make sense?
Potentially. Yeah, what I would do is look at the individual thing you're trying to do, like the task you're trying to do, and just go start at like a G2 Crowd or someplace like that has a directory of marketing technology. Find the tools that would potentially enable that, and then do a little research into which of them are enabling more intelligent approaches to this, because they're just not as far along.
So what tool did you use? Because you said you guys were doing the reports, and then you did an AI.
We used Automated Insights for that. So they built a model, and they wrote the templates, and then it pipes the data out of Google Analytics, or you can put a script right into a Google Sheet and produce the reports.
Okay, and I was just looking up API.ai, and I found Google just acquired them, creating dialogue flow. So I guess that might be natural language AI. So,
yeah, a lot of people have tried to open up AI more, trying to go to a more open ecosystem. The problem is there's so little AI talent that most of the big guys like Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they buy all the promising tech. So that's one of the things that may prevent massive disruption from happening in the next 3 to 5 years, is the most promising tech will not remain independent.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go here, and then maybe one more over here.
I had a quick question for you in terms of SMS. Have you seen any decent implementations of AI that you would, recommend? Any company is doing like intelligent SMS?
I haven't. I mean, I've seen it integrated with bots, where the ability to have the bot communicate. But again, keep in mind, like most bots that you're seeing actually aren't using AI. Like, it's still a lot of the human writing the branching logic, and so that whole idea of like automation is actually manual. Most bots are trained and coded by a human. It just can automate the interactions once you've set it. So SMS, you can interact with a bot, but most of the narrative has been written by a human. Did you still have one over here?
Thank you. That was very insightful. I was wondering if someone wants to go deeper into this knowledge, do you have good books to recommend or good information sources?
Yeah, the one I read that sort of opened my eyes to everything was called Automate This by Christopher Steiner. And that was in 2012 I read that one, so it's old, but it's aged well. I actually just reread parts of it. Okay. It talks about the disruption of other industries. So what it'll do for you is open your mind to what could be done, and you'll start thinking of all the use cases. So that would be a good one. And then the master algorithm, like if you want to start really expanding your mind of crazy stuff.
Start with Automate This.
Automate This is a good base level
algorithm.
Starting point.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And one more back. I know he has his hand up. Last one. And I'll stay around if anybody wants to ask more questions.
So from a reporting standpoint, what have you seen tool-wise that does good data mining to help you really pull actionable insights out of the data?
It's tough. There's a couple of companies that have tried to do it, like Pave AI is one that comes to mind. So the problem with extracting insights from analytics is there's a lot of noise, and it requires a massive amount of training, which injects human bias. And what I mean by that probably sounded really geeky. It may surface 100 things that it thinks happen. Like you use machine learning to find 100 things that happen on the site that may have caused up or down in different factors. And then you have to go through and say, which ones actually do you think were really relevant? And so you start training it. But again, now it's got the bias of that human that was training it built in to say, was it or was it not important? So there are companies that have been trying for years now to better surface. That's what I think the Ask Analytics with Google is. Like a quickest way to do it is when you go into your Google app and it's got that little insights thing in the top right, click on that. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find the most important insight from the performance data and give it to you as part of your analytics. So I think more companies are going to do a lot of that. I haven't seen it done well yet by really anybody. All right, thank you very much. I will stick around if anybody has more questions.